Elon Musk has a plan for Twitter. He just isn't telling us what it is. Bobby Allen, business reporter at NPR, is with us now. Bobby, we appreciate it. Do we have any idea what his idea here was?
I mean, I think it's personal safety. I mean, he told us on Twitter that, as you said, that these are assassination coordinates. He was really worried that if people knew where his private jet was flying out of and where it was landing, that his personal safety could be at risk. And he even cited what he called a crazy stalker who he claims chased one of these vehicles, and a vehicle in which one of his children was in. And he just wants to put an end to people knowing when his jets are coming and going. Now, it's important to underscore here that this information is public. It's publicly available.
Yeah, we had Jack Sweeney, the kid who started the account on last night to talk about this as well. I guess what I'm wondering is sort of his bigger plan for Twitter in general. Where is he driving this, and what does he want it to be to get a return on $44 billion?
It's political for Musk. I mean, Musk sees this as a way of making it a more free speech platform. He sees it as a way, honestly, of keeping Elon Musk in the headlines. He really wants a megaphone to be able to spread his message, to spread his values, to spread the word about some of his other companies, including Tesla and SpaceX. And controlling what is essentially the front page of the internet is one pretty powerful way to do this. But, you know, I think there is something else going on here, too. And he thinks that Twitter has gotten a little out of hand. Before he took it over, he would often criticize Twitter for going too far in its content moderation decisions and sort of giving what he calls the woke left too big of a megaphone. And he thinks that ought to be curtailed. He understands the power of Twitter. He understands how it sets the political agenda and sets the agenda in newsrooms across the country. And he is here sort of pushing back on that and saying,
so are we to believe, though, that it's an altruistic idea? You know, he said to Bari Weiss, who he's now had a falling out with again because she dared question him in this censoring that he has done. He said, "I'm not going to spend $44 billion to reinstate a satire blog. I did it because I was worried about the future of civilization." Is he arrogant enough to believe that him controlling what is said on Twitter is going to save civilization?
I'm not sure if my job is to measure the arrogance of the world's richest person, but I mean, I can say that he is a true believer in his investments. I mean, if you look at the success of SpaceX and Tesla, you can see that he takes sort of bold risks. He puts a lot of money and energy into his companies, and sometimes they take off. Sometimes they don't. But yeah, I think he does speak in these sort of lofty terms about saving civilization because he knows journalists like myself and people around the world turn to Twitter to know what's happening in the world. And what's his overall goal with the company? I mean, nobody really knows. I mean, even if you look at his public statements, it's often full of contradictions. But if we're to believe what he's saying, it's to make it a place that fosters a wider range of views and a place that
he's been fairly consistent about that, so long as it's not views about where his private jet is. Tesla stock, 52-week high, 402.67 today, 150. $700 billion or so of value has been wiped off the balance sheet, and that is a lot of people's savings and retail investors' life savings and investments and gains and everything else. That's the equivalent of 3 Walt Disneys, 4 Nikes, and 6 Starbucks. I'm wondering what is the talk out in Silicon Valley of sort of the investment world's and the tech world's willingness to put up with this on the Tesla side?
Mm-hmm. I mean, he is really putting the stock at risk here, and especially because, as we've seen, advertisers have fled Twitter internally. It's been plagued with turmoil. If Twitter really nosedives, I mean, potentially he's, like you're saying, he's putting Tesla's stock. So if you're a shareholder of Tesla, you ought to be concerned, and the company itself at risk. I mean, what's Silicon Valley's tolerance for this? I think a lot of people are saying sort of, let's just wait and see. Yes, he is a mercurial character. Yes, he's unpredictable. Yes, he has, sort of fans and enemies all over the place. But he's definitely making some big changes to Twitter. I think most people in Silicon Valley, especially bosses and corner office types, if you're in a C-suite right now, you're kind of cheering him on, to be honest.
That's fascinating. You're cheering him on privately, not so much saying it publicly. Bobby?
That's right.
This is great. I'm really glad to have your perspective. It's fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.